Good morning to the media present here today, and also the viewers and listeners out there in the virtual world. This morning is now a normal Sunday morning presser being held at the leader of the opposition office in Port of Spain. As you know, let me introduce myself. I am David Lee, Member of Parliament for Pointe-a-Pierre. I also shadow energy and energy affairs along with other ministries. And joining me this morning for our normal Sunday morning presser to enlighten the country of issues that have been happening in the last week or so. Joining me and my colleague here this morning is Senator the Honorable Arnold Roberts with me this morning, and I feel special to be sitting alongside Senator Roberts and to be joining with him on this our Sunday morning presser. It has been a while that I've sat next to Anil, and it is a great pleasure, Anil, to be hosting this Sunday morning's presser with you. So without further delay, let me get into some areas that I will be going first, and some areas that I would like to discuss this morning to the population. Two issues. One is the AB drilling arbitration statement and issue presented in Parliament on Friday last by the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, Minister Stuart Young. He presented a statement and he laid a 70-page plus document of the AB drilling arbitration in Parliament for the hands-on and for the record of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And I'll also be touching on NGC, the National Gas Company, and some issues that have arisen that we were well aware about, and it has come to the public domain via the media in the last 10 days or so. So without delay, let me get into my presentation. Now on Friday last in Parliament, Minister Stuart made a minister's statement on AV Oil and Gas Limited arbitration. It's a 13-page document, and he took 25 minutes to present this document in Parliament. And after his presentation, he laid the official arbitration report of AV Gas Oil Limited versus Petrotrin. And that's a 76-page document, 76 pages. And I want to ask the population, even especially the attorneys out there, to really have a critique and really analyze that 76-page document of AV Gas and Oil Limited versus Petrotrin, because it's a very interesting arbitration, and it really tells, and there's a lot more after you read that document. There's a lot more that needs to be answered by this government and also even Petrotrin. So when you listen to Minister Young present his statement on Friday in Parliament, and I listened to him very carefully, and at one point in time I was aghast, and I use the word aghast because I was wondering who, when he presented a statement of the findings or the determination by the arbitration, the three judges, and the way he was presenting it in Parliament, I started to ask myself, is Minister Young working for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, or is he working for the bestie? And we all know that AV Drilling, the owners of AV Drilling, are friends, and it is there in the public domain, and it has been substantiated by Prime Minister Rowley that is his friend. So the way Minister Young was presenting the statement, I got the impression, and this is my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I got the impression that Minister Young was happy that Petrotrin lost the arbitration results. And this is why I asked the question, is Minister Young, at the time when he was presenting, who he represented? Is it the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago or someone else? So, and I asked the population to take a read of not only the minister's statement, but also the 76-page document of the arbitration findings. Now, when you listen and you read the minister's statement on Friday, he started off by casting an aspersion that the leader of the opposition was actually running the government of Trinidad and Tobago back in 10th September 2017. Now we all know the PNM government led by Prime Minister Rowley controlled the country and the government from September 2015 to now. But on a political platform, when you listen to Minister Young, he would swear that the Honorable Kamala Prasad-Desessa was running this country and was controlling Petrotrin at the time. Now, about 10 days ago, there was a piece of legislation that the government brought in Parliament and is still being discussed and debated. It has not been concluded. It's called the whistleblower legislation. And because of that whistleblower that was presented in the mailbox of the Honorable Kamala Prasad-Desessa, an internal interim report done by the auditors in Petrotrin at the time in 2017, she presented something, that document, that internal report document, on a political platform on the 10th of September 2017. And that is the work of the opposition. That is the job of the opposition. That sometimes all of us, including Anil, gets a lot of information that we call it whistleblower information that comes to us, and it is our responsibility after reviewing the documents to present it to the population, because that is why the whistleblower would have sent it to us. So after reviewing that internal document, and we found that it had a lot of credibility in it, the leader of the opposition presented on that report on a political platform on the 10th of September 2017. And that was her job. Now, who was running Petrotrin in September 2017? It was the government of Trinidad and Tobago led by the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. And the board of directors at the time in Petrotrin the chairman was Wilfred Espinay. And I think at the time the CEO was still Fitzroy Harewood, all appointed by this present government, this PNM government, led by Dr. Rowley. So it is not the UNC, it is not the leader of the opposition team. She was not in charge of this government. So we got information, and all the leader of the opposition did was present it to the population. And what happened after she presented that internal document? It triggered an investigation by the same PNM board headed by Wilfred Espinay and his team. And I want to refer to page 20 of the arbitration report. And I want to quote it here for the record. And I want to say on the 10th, and I quote, on the 10th of September 2017, the leader of the opposition, reading from a document which he said was the audit report, made a public statement alleging fraud by the claimant. The claimant at the time is considered AV Drilling. And this is a public document laid in Parliament. So it is not something that is sub judice, and we can read it out in the public. And after that statement was made, in a letter dated the 14th of September 2017, referring to the statements made by the respondent. The respondent will be Petrotrin, to the media. The claimant's lawyer, which is AV Drilling lawyer, one Ms. Maharaj, said that this is the first time that the AV Drilling, the claimant, had been informed of it and had not received the audit report, which is the internal report that Mr. Prasad Bissessar would have talked about, or been asked to respond to any of his allegations. But further to that, based on that audit report, the board led by Wilfred Esmini, what did they do? On the 30th of September 2017, and it's here in the report, the Petrotrin announced to the press, to the media, that it had retained an international Canadian company, reputable international company, called Kroll Consulting of Canada Company, to probe what was referred to as the fake oil scandal. And I'm quoting. On November 2017, the Petrotrin, the respondent Petrotrin, issued another media release saying that its findings had been confirmed by Kroll and that an additional report by another company, reputable company called Gaffney Klein, had also found that the reservoir was not capable of producing the volumes, the oils in question. Now, this is a report that Wilfred Esmini and his board decided to hire based on the Petrotrin internal report of certain allegations. They hired Gaffney Klein, international company, and they came up with their findings, which was very negative towards the claimant, and they then hired another company called Kroll to substantiate on their own another independent investigation. And it was based on the findings of these two international companies that Petrotrin, not Kamla Prasad Bissessar or the UNC or the opposition, took the steps of legal issues related to the claimant, which is AB Oil and Gas Company Limited. Okay? So clearly, all the opposition did was to raise a whistleblower report that came to us, put it out there, and it is Petrotrin, the PNM government, that took the necessary steps to carry it further by taking legal action on the said claimant, said company, which is AB Gas and Oil. And the history is there. It went to arbitration, and the three judges ruled in favor of AB Drilling. And that is there in the arbitration report. Now, when you look at the Minister Young's last statement on Friday, and I want to quote him. He says, "Madam Speaker, this hopefully brings to an end the mischief, misinformation, and attempts to mislead the people of Trinidad and Tobago after almost 4 years." And I want to quote that. "Madam Speaker, this hopefully brings to an end the mischief, misinformation, and attempts to mislead the people of Trinidad and Tobago after almost 4 years." Who was misleading the people of Trinidad and Tobago? It wasn't the opposition. Petrotrin, by their rights, had hired independent companies to investigate Petrotrin's internal audit reports on the issue. So it is Petrotrin's right, and Minister Young represents the country and the population of Trinidad and Tobago. He's a senior cabinet minister. He would have been well aware, along with the Attorney General, along with the Prime Minister, along at the time the Minister of Energy at the time, God rest his soul, Minister Franklin Khan. They would have been well aware of the issues that were being raised in that Petrotrin internal report, and also maybe they might have been well aware of the findings of the independent companies that led Petrotrin to take the legal action that they did on AB Oil and Gas. And that is their right, because they have to protect the interests of the taxpayers and the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. That is the role of Minister Young. That is the role of cabinet ministers, etc., who control the government
of the day. So it is a bit disingenuous that Minister Young can make a statement like this in Parliament, because I come back with my opening remarks is, who is Minister Young representing? Who is he working for, ladies and gentlemen? And that leaves a lot of further questions when you read this arbitration report. Because when I look at that, I don't know, as my colleague would say, what is the role of the arbitration. And I will get into my presentation, because you see, in Minister Young's statement, he repeated that the arbiters found that Petrotrin had no reasonable grounds to terminate AV Oil and Gas. But the arbitration is not a court of law, from what I understand. It is a private dispute resolution. It must be remembered that this matter was also ventilated in the Court of Appeal, where AV Drilling attempted to obtain an injunctive relief. However, the appeal court, when confronted, and that is there in the public domain, with evidence by AV, felt that AV did not establish that Petrotrin was wrong to hold a reasonable suspicion that AV misconducted itself. In particular, the words of Justice Prakash Musai, and I want to quote him, AV has not demonstrated that there was at least an arguable case that Petrotrin did not have reasonable grounds for suspecting that it had misconducted itself or otherwise had been involved in wrongful or fraudulent activity. That is the words of Justice Prakash Musai when he ruled in the appeal court against AV for the injunctive relief. And after that, then they went into arbitration. It is clear that Petrotrin had found some form of reasonable grounds and was not based on political platform allegations by the leader of the opposition, as stated by Minister Young in his statement on the arbitration in Parliament. And I want to ask further, with all due respect to the arbitrators, arbitration is a private dispute resolution method. This is not a court of law. I want to ask, what legal advice, after the arbitration ruling was given, and it is out there in the public domain that the Petrotrin lawyer was represented by senior counsel Deborah Peake, and she had made a case to appeal the matter to the Supreme Court. Now, in Minister Young's statement, he said that Petrotrin got advice from two senior counsels. One is, I think, Ralston Nelson, it is there, another Queen's Counsel, that they gave advice to the Petrotrin board at the time, which is now a new Petrotrin board. Now, I want to say that the Petrotrin board today is not the same Petrotrin board that when this arbitration and the issue of AV drilling started up. That board at the time in 2017, 2018 was headed by Wilfred Esme and a different board. Based on the board now, it is chaired by Michael Kwamina and a different team of board members. Okay, so it is two entirely different boards. So this new board, headed by attorney Michael Kwamina as chairman, got advice from two eminent senior counsels, Ralston Nelson and another Queen's Counsel, and based on their advice, the Petrotrin board decided not to pursue the matter to the Supreme Court, which was against the advice that Deborah Peake, who is representing them, wanted to take the matter further to the Supreme Court. And what is interesting is that Minister Young, when he made that minister statement, he laid the arbitration report, the 76-page document, we are calling on Minister Young to lay also, or to make public, the advice of Deborah Peake for going forward and appealing the matter to the Supreme Court. We want to see that advice, and we also want to see the advice from his esteemed senior counsel, Nelson and the Queen's Counsel, on their advice of why not to carry the matter further to the Supreme Court. So there's a lot more issues in respect to this whole matter of AV gas and oil versus Petrotrin, and time will tell. I mean, we will see what happens, and we are calling on Minister Young to lay the advice of Deborah Peake, the esteemed senior counsel, because she's a brilliant attorney, Anil, brilliant attorney, and she wanted to carry the matter further. So that is in respect of the AV drilling matter that I wanted to touch on. The other matter that I want to touch on this morning, that is there in the public domain, another whistleblower issue of the termination. I use the word termination. I'm sure the government will say that the two individuals resigned. So I would use the word termination, and again it's from whistleblower information of two directors on the board of NGC that were terminated, or their appointments were not renewed. That is one, Sean Balkisoon, eminent energy expert, and a veteran energy expert, Mr. Kenneth Alam, who were not reappointed as directors of the NGC board. Now, when you look at the CV and the resumes of these two esteemed gentlemen, Sean Balkisoon, let me take Mr. Sean Balkisoon first, and his CV is totally expertise in the energy sector for over 25 years. He has worked with Hydro Agri Trinidad, now called Liara. He has worked always in it for the last 25 years and senior positions within the energy sector. He was placed on the board back in 2019, I think January 2019, as a board member on NGC based on his expertise. And when you look at the resume and the history of Mr. Kenneth Alam, I mean, Mr. Kenneth Alam is second to none in respect of the energy sector. Mr. Alam has served 38 years, over 30 years in the energy sector, including a past managing director of Trintok. I'm sure some of the young media here today wouldn't even know what Trintok was at the time. Anil, as all his years, would understand what Trintok is. He was vice president of the refining of Petrotrin, and he became president of Petrotrin before he retired. Now, and also, what is the strength of Mr. Alam? Mr. Alam transcended all different governments over his career, so that PNM, UNC utilized Mr. Alam's expertise over the history of all different governments because of Mr. Alam's expertise and also his independence that he exuded to all governments. So it was about his patriotism, it was about giving back to the country, and all governments or all prime ministers at the time would have recognized that about Mr. Alam. So what has happened now? Mr. Alam came on the board of NGC in September 2015, and he has been there up until the non-renewal or termination of his reappointment a few weeks ago. So, and why that would have happened? Why would Minister Young or even the government of the day want to get rid of an expert like Mr. Alam when we have so many issues that are going on in our energy sector? I mean, the country would have been well aware of the debacle in our energy sector since this government has taken over. And when you read the article based on the whistleblower information, a senior cabinet minister, Minister Imbert, Minister of Finance, as head of Corporation Seoul, had asked for all the directors to be renewed, inclusive of Sean Balkisoon and also Kenneth Alam. Now, Minister Imbert is a senior politician, he's a senior expert. He has been in government over 25 years plus. He has a lot of degrees, and one of the degrees I understand is in the petroleum sector. So he understands the petroleum sector. He would have worked with Mr. Alam years gone by. So he would have understood the value of Mr. Alam. And he had one of his recommendations as Corporation Seoul was to retain Mr. Alam on the board of NGC. Now, Minister Young, who is young in the game, and no pun intended, doesn't have the kind of experience that Minister Imbert would have in the energy sector. But as fate would have it, Minister Imbert was override by the decision, and these two gentlemen were terminated, or their contracts were not renewed as board members on NGC. And I understand, and we understand, Anil, that the reason for that is that especially Mr. Alam would raise issues of what has been happening on NGC. And you know the whole debacle about Train 1 and the over $240 million loss of putting taxpayers' money from NGC into Atlantic Train 1, which, as we know today, it is literally dead. There's no LNG going into Train 1. NGC has spent over $240 million and counting, and we understand that Mr. Alam was really the check and balance over NGC as a board member, senior board member with the expertise. And I guess he might have been challenging the president of the day, Mr. Lokwan, on certain issues. So one has to ask, seeing that Mr. Alam is no longer on the board of NGC, has he been also removed because he sits on several other boards? Has he also been removed from those boards, given what has happened in the parent board of NGC? So we ask that question. So that, you know, there is a lot that has been going on in NGC, Anil, and that keeps coming out in the public domain via whistleblowers. So and that is the key. Now we have legislation called the whistleblowing legislation, but we as an opposition feel that legislation doesn't go enough to strengthen the whistleblowers and protect the whistleblowers when they come forward, because we see it here right now. I just gave two examples. NGC was due to the information that's coming out in whistleblowing, and also what happened? They terminated two directors, and we also now see it in the AV drilling matter, that the whole issue came to fore because of whistleblowing whistleblowers coming out and giving out information in the public domain. So as I close before I hand over to you, Anil, you know, all we would say is that, you know, there's a lot more that will come out again, and it's based on information that the opposition is getting from whistleblowers within state companies, that they feel aggrieved and they do not like what is happening and how these state companies are being run, especially in the energy sector. So I see the other day Mr. Lokwan, I think his forte is composing music for the carnival industry. He's a composer. I think he's a composer of pan. Now I don't know where Mr. Lokwan gets the time to do this, given, you know, trying to run a crown jewel of NGC and what is happening in NGC. So I asked Mr. Lokwan to spend some time in really running NGC and really conduct the activities at NGC the way it's supposed to be done. Because we have seen losses at NGC over the last year, right? $1 billion losses and so forth. So we a lot more will be said in the coming weeks on the energy sector, Anil. And with those few words, ladies and gentlemen, I rest at this point in time, and I turn over to my colleague, the Honourable Senator Anil Roberts.
Thank you very much, Member of Parliament for Point of Peer and Chief Whip. On behalf of Kamala Prasad Bisesa, the Member of Parliament for Separia, and the Leader of the Opposition, all her MPs and all her senators, the National Executive of the United National Congress, and all members of the United National Congress across Trinidad and Tobago, we express heartfelt condolences to the mother, the father, the sister of Yaelvis Santoyo Sarabija, the little baby who was killed as a bullet ripped through his skull, splitting his brain in two. On the seas, in the water of Trinidad and Tobago, we say condolences to the people of Venezuela. We are sorry. We humbly apologize. This story is not one that is an accident or can be easily flitted away. We have to consider that human beings are human beings. And for those of us in Trinidad and Tobago who are trying to make a distinction between a Venezuelan baby and our own babies, stop it, please. Because we are in the throes of the worst economic devastation led by a government and a prime minister who are clueless, who have created job loss never before seen. We are approaching 100% debt to GDP ratio. There is no future. The agricultural sector is devastated. No jobs, no opportunities. The education sector has been dampened and is not producing opportunities for our young people. Crime is of a scale never before seen. Murders, carjackings, robberies, hijackings, rape, killings are going on across Trinidad and Tobago in broad daylight. So we might be in some time in the future on a boat going to Grenada or Barbados or countries that have governments better than Rowley's PNM. And think about it now as we go to discuss very critical, serious issues. Don't see little Yaelbis as a Venezuelan migrant baby if you cannot see him as a human being. See him as your baby, your grandchild. You're on your way to Barbados because the PNM has shattered the economy of Trinidad and Tobago and it's unsafe for you and your family. You cannot live and you're starving. And the military forces of another nation come upon your vessel and attack unarmed mothers and children and kill your baby. That's where you begin. Picture that, feel the pain, and then you can see how serious this issue is. This issue has gone international. It is global. We cannot do the normal Trinidad and Tobago 9-day wonder. The media cannot pretend that it does not exist. This story has generated interest all over the globe, and I will give you examples. The Washington Post, The Guardian in the UK, Starbrook News, Jamaica Gleaner, all of these newspapers have printed stories about what the Trinidad and Tobago Army, military, Coast Guard did on illegal migrants, people looking for a better life, killing a baby. Caracas Chronicles, Reuters, ABC News, Global Voices, The Jurist, The Independent UK, ADN America, CTV News, UNICEF, Barron's, Seattle Times, San Francisco Chronicle, the Guam Daily Post, WIC News, The Daily Beast, Newsnet, Al Arabiya News, The Star, Swiss Info, US News, Saudi Gazette, The Stamford Advocate, Jurist.org, Caracas Chronicles, Reuters, Global Voices, Independent UK, Beta News, UNICEF.org, Barron's, San Francisco Chronicles have all printed articles on this issue. Yet Keith Christopher Rowley has made comments. His first comment was that he gave condolences, very good, to Delcy Rodriguez on the death of the baby, and that a thorough investigation will be undertaken. And 8 hours after making that statement, Keith Rowley has and continues to make categorical statements of fact without an investigation, without an independent investigating unit being appointed, without an iota of evidence. Keith Rowley, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, has made some of these comments, and let's read them. He says, well, let's go to Keith Rowley first, because I was going to go to the UNICEF. Let us go to Keith Rowley. He posted on his Facebook post, and he said, the opposition leader attacking Kamala. And he goes on to say that the opposition leader said, close the border's porous. Venezuelan illegal immigrants are overrunning Trinidad and Tobago. We have over 80,000 here. Well, we have over 200,000 here. And yes, the opposition has been calling for a security dome around our borders before COVID-19 and throughout the pandemic. We called for diesel for our Coast Guard vessels to patrol all night long, for helicopters, the air guard to be replenished, to get the component of 21 pilots rather than 2, to make sure the radar is functioning around the country, to station army patrols during the last 25 months, army camps on the Southwest Peninsula, because we were in a pandemic war. But the opposition never, ever said to kill babies, to shoot at illegal migrants, to shoot at unarmed individuals. That is not part and parcel of proper military procedure, security protection, or Coast Guard's work. No security expert would ever condone that. And in no way can one be calling for the borders to be protected be equated with shooting and killing and attacking unarmed human beings. What a ridiculous position presented by Keith Christopher Rowley and his PNM sycophants. Border protection does not involve shooting unarmed mothers and babies. It does not include shooting people and treating them without the respect that they deserve. It does not mean that you breach these rules that we have and we are signatory to, and all the treaties that we have. This is the recommended principles and guidelines on human rights at international borders. And for anyone to suggest that the responsible United National Congress, who is stating to protect our borders so that our people can be safe, so that our economy will not be devastated in a pandemic from the regular variant, from the Brazilian variant, from the Delta variant, and from the Omicron variant. For anyone to equate that with the UNC saying, go wild like gunslingers and shoot innocent human beings, it's ludicrous, it's asinine, and it's not on. So Keith Rowley, withdraw those statements, and all his supporters who believe that, stop making a joke of a serious situation. Rowley then says, while he's claiming that there is an investigation, all over the globe people are calling for investigations, and Rowley says, our border patrol attempts to stop the craft that refuse to comply. Is that a fact? Do we know that? How do we know that? Where are the witness statements? Where's the independent investigation? Where are the conclusions? They acted aggressively towards lawful, reasonable, and professional orders under international protocols and law, says Rowley. Our officer on patrol under professional orders attempted to disable the craft in the darkness of the ocean. The craft could easily have been carrying any cargo of guns, ammunition, killers, or anything on the move. There was an accident, says Rowley. Unfortunately, a passenger child was regrettably killed. It was an accident. Well, today I will show you that the one criteria that cannot be fulfilled about a description of the activities that took place on that fateful Saturday night on the seas in the Gulf of Paria, it could not be considered an accident. That is one that is off the table completely. And I will show you here today. Rowley continued and stated that a meeting between Coast Guard officials and their Venezuelan counterparts would take place. What does that mean? Shouldn't there be a meeting between the Minister of Foreign Affairs and CARICOM Affairs here and the Minister with responsibility for Foreign Affairs in Venezuela? Rowley noted that the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard and Police Service have initiated investigations. Really? The Coast Guard is going to investigate the Coast Guard, and he believes that that is going to suffice for the entire world that is awaiting an independent forensic investigation to say what took place in the waters of Trinidad and Tobago. The Coast Guard, he onto himself, going to investigate, or the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service that has just gone through a constitutional crisis where a merit list was discarded, and Keith Rowley admitted that he lost faith in the Independent Commissioner of Police and put a chain of events into place where there is now a selected Police Commissioner of Police acting, who was selected by the executive, which is the PNM. He thinks that is going to suffice to the international agencies who are watching with a hawk eye on this matter. Rowley said, when he was pressed further, he said what was being done to manage the fallout from international reports on the treatment of Venezuelan nationals in Trinidad and Tobago. Prime Minister Rowley called on the opposition leader and members of a party to stop bad-mouthing the country. All of these reports that we have seen, all of those news agencies, not one of them spoke about Kamala, or what Kamala say, or what the leader of the opposition say. None are interested in a Westminster system, in the leader of the opposition who does not have authority or organizational control of the military and the assets, who cannot set policy and cannot spend money to defend the country. The people across the globe are interested in the leader, the prime minister, the leader of the cabinet, the man who sets national security policy, who appoints the national security minister and gives instructions. What is he doing about a baby being killed under his watch? So they can, in the words of Trinidad and Tobago, rest Kamala. Everything for Rowley is Kamala, Kamala, Kamala. The world didn't ask about Kamala. The only person talking about Kamala is Rowley. Why are our people trying to put a rope around the necks of the people of Trinidad and Tobago in a matter which is purely accidental, which is minuscule compared to what is happening worldwide? This matter, according to Rowley, the killing of a little baby by armed military soldiers coming off of a warship designed to battle gun runners, drug traffickers, cocaine smugglers, armed with killing weapons, kill a mother and a baby, blew his head open. And Rowley says this is a minuscule item, this is unimportant. Yet I just read to you the interest globally in this issue. Rowley says flippantly that all over the world, in Europe, in the Mediterranean, in Mexico, there are people who handle border issues. Yes, they do. And I have searched and searched, and not one incident of any coast guard of any nation being overrun by migrants. There is not one previous incident of a baby having their head blown off by military personnel. Keep Christopher Rowley. You have put us squarely in a zone that did not exist before. You have dragged the flag of Trinidad and Tobago like no other prime minister. And you call Kamala? Leave Kamala. This is a very serious, critical issue, and it will not be swept under the carpet like AV oil, like the Dominica OAS statement with the ambassador who was instructed by the ministry to ensure that Dominica paid the fees. It will not be swept under the carpet like the Darrell Smith affair with an appointed committee by Rowley. It will not be swept under the carpet like a COVID-19 committee given a week to investigate 3,500 deaths and people dying at home in ambulances and oxygen and tents with no internist, with one nurse for 50 patients. It won't be swept under the carpet because the media, global media, is watching, not only the local media. So Rowley said that there will be, Venezuela has demanded an exhaustive investigation. And why? Why is this not a flippant matter? Why is this not, as Rowley described, a small accident, an unfortunate incident? Because people at the UNCHR said nobody should have to lose their life in their search for safety, protection, and new opportunities, said Dr. Eduardo Stein, Joint Special Representative of the UNHCR and IOM for Venezuelan refugees and migrants. They also said pathways for entries should be consistent with international human rights laws and humanitarian considerations and include access to due process and procedural safeguards. The joint statement said. It continued, in their call, the agency reminded the state parties to the Convention on the Rights of the Child must safeguard the rights of all children on their territory, irrespective of their nationality or status. So stop trying to distinguish whether it's a Venezuelan boy or baby. It's irrelevant to the world. Babies are babies are babies. Mothers are mothers are mothers. No migrant child should ever die. This comes from UNICEF. The Regional Director of Latin America and Caribbean, Jean Goff, reiterated that no migrant child should ever die, whether traveling with their parents or alone. No mother wants to put the lives of her children at risk on a small ship in the deep sea unless she has no other option. UNCHR, IOM, UNICEF. Several UN agencies released a joint statement, and that's what they claim. The agency also called for renewed support and protections for refugee women and children. Article 2 of the UN Convention of the Rights of the Child, which requires signatory states, and we in Trinidad and Tobago are a signatory state. It says they must provide safeguard the rights of all children irrespective of their nationality or status. So stop the xenophobia, stop the division, stop the distinction. It's a little baby killed. It's not an accident. UNICEF, IOM statement. State parties to the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And why am I going through this? Because this has been the policy of the PNM for the last 3 years. We have no migrant policy. We do not adhere to what treaties we have signed. We have been deporting children. 16 children in 2018 deported heartlessly without any sort of consideration for the humanity and for the rule of international law. The PNM has collapsed and has embarrassed this country international. And all Rowley could say is Kamla, Kamla, Kamla. State parties to the Convention on the Rights of the Child must safeguard the rights of all children in their territory, irrespective of their nationality status. Parents are oftentimes seeking a safer and brighter future for their children, and yet tragedies are all too common. No migrant child should ever die. We call on the authorities to investigate the incident, said Alberto Brunori, Regional Representative for Central America and English-speaking Caribbean. Rowley, where's the investigation? Where's the independent committee? Who's investigating? Where are the witnesses? Where are the forensics? Where's the vessel? The UNCHR have productive relationships with the government of Trinidad and Tobago, including Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. We reiterate our commitment to sharing our expertise and international human rights standards. So these people, these organizations realize the weaknesses in the PNM's no policy, no foreign policy, no migrant policy, no humane treatment. They move on a case-by-case basis, damaging our international reputation. And they're even suggesting that they would like to help Rowley and Amory Brown and Stuart Young and Fitzgerald Ethelbert Hines, who cannot be found in the BTAM, while the stench is all surrounding and enveloping the area. Cannot be found. They want to help them create a policy. But Rowley continued. He opened a pond in Maloney for people again, only opening ponds all over the place for constituents who vote for them. Things that cannot be described as pools. And if anybody know about pool, it's me, Olympic coach, swimming coach here. Them thing they building there, it could not be pools. That's not fit for human consumption and children's advancement in the sport of swimming, water polo, synchronized swimming, and moving forward. It's a ridiculous joke to be mama guying people like that. He said, Rowley said again, while making a speech to the Coast Guard, it is common knowledge that in Trinidad and Tobago we are under constant penetration from the persons from other countries who see Trinidad and Tobago as a better opportunity. Well, that's not even true. Migrants are heading back to Venezuela because Trinidad and Tobago is so painful, so dangerous, crime-ridden, murder, rape, no opportunities. So migrants prefer to go and suffer in their own home where they can be amongst their family, friends, and sing their national anthem with pride. So they are not coming here for any beautiful experience under the PNM. The result of that action, that legal action, says Rowley, that appropriate action in defending TNT resulted in the killing of that child. To be called murderer, I reject it, I reject it, I reject it. You are not one to reject anything. The world is waiting for an investigation. So we are moving forward now. So we have some questions, and let me tell you, and by the time I am finished here, I will alert you to the point and the fact that this could not be deemed an accident. It could be many other things, but it is not an accident. First of all, the Cape Class vessels that Rowley purchased with small pin without procurement. He went down to Australia and did not have a board tender committee invitation to tender. Did not have an audit from the Coast Guard requesting any vessels. There were vessels there that were not provided with diesel. Rowley and his minister Stuart Young went and procured these vessels, and Wade Mark has stated 200 or 300 million over. But these vessels, these warships that were built to patrol, They are outfitted with what we call the FLIR system, the forward-looking infrared. It's a thermal imaging system which can give the people, the captain and those officers on board the ability to see what is on a vessel through thermal imaging, which is hot, and we are hot-blooded mammals. We show up on thermal screens that they could see up to 6 nautical miles. So are you telling me, one, that the Cape class vessels thermal and imaging system did not allow the Coast Guard who were patrolling to see 37 thermal masses on a pirogue? Was the FLIR system working, or was it not functioning? Were the Coast Guard officers trained properly to utilize this technology, or are they not able so to do because Rowley rushed them out there to patrol? Because thermal imaging gives a very clear picture, and you would have also seen, Elvis, a little baby, would have given a tiny thermal image. He would have given a tiny thermal image. The other 37 people, the other 17 children, and 20 would have given an image. So for Rowley to state that the Coast Guard were out there in darkness and they just went and they did not know, let us also find out what did they do. Because if you were in the darkness, and this investigation needs a lot of information, if they were in the darkness, why then did the officer in charge deploy the light craft? Because if you do not know what you're facing, you do not put your officers in harm's way by putting them in a smaller craft and telling them to go and investigate. If it was in fact people coming to overthrow Trinidad, because it would have been an army of people, 37, armed head to the hilt, then our Coast Guard officers would have been slaughtered because of incompetence. You put officers in harm's way without intel. So we ask again, is the forward-looking infrared working, or did we spend hundreds of millions of dollars on a vessel that is useless? We also, the Coast Guard report said that they were under threat and that they were being rammed. Well, let me read something for you about the vessel, the light craft that was on the Cape class. From Portsmouth, UK, Hostile Australia has ordered 6 Pacific 24 rigid inflatable boats, RIBs, to equip 2 Cape class patrol boats they are building for the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. The RIBs built and customized in BAE Systems Boats Factory in Portsmouth, UK. The P-24 is a small and agile boat that can be deployed for a variety of tasks, counter-piracy and counter-narcotics missions. To force protection, rescue and logistics operations, it is used by a number of military customers, including the Royal Navy. But its versatility, fuel efficiency, and high-tech construction also lends itself to use by civil customers. The MKI-5 version of the P-24 incorporates latest technology in hull construction, including improved shock mitigation and propulsion, and provides extra safety to craft and crew by complying with rigorous safety of life SOLAS testing procedures, including drops, slams, and self-righting trials, making them the vessel of choice for guard work. It's the first choice in seaboard. What am I reading all this for you to say? The Coast Guard, heavily armed, bulletproof vests, they were in a military-grade light craft. So therefore, to be rammed, these boats are designed to be rammed and to right themselves and to protect the crew on board. So being rammed in a military situation is not a novel thing. So your life is not in danger if you're being rammed by a pirogue with 37 human beings who are unarmed. This is why we need an investigation, because in the words of the great Sprangalang, the story need more people. We continue. Rowley created and he boasted when he cut the ribbon and he ignored Fitzgerald Ethelbert Hines and took small pin Stuart Young to open and say the Cape class vessels have come and we're now safe. He boasted about the technology and that we could be patrolling it all night and we must protect ourselves. But one thing must be noted here, in his entire speech, he never spoke about illegal immigrants. He never spoke about illegal migrants. He spoke about drug runners, cocaine traffickers, and so on. So this was August. And then, well, they opened it, they cut the ribbon in November last year. But porous borders was not his problem. He never decided, he never wanted to deal with immigrants. And that is the situation. Now he says, the UNC says, you say immigrants, immigrants, immigrants. So we told them to go out there. The United National Congress never said to our military, kill women and children, shoot on migrants. We live up to the laws that we have signed onto and the treaties. Now, let me just ask a few questions as I wrap up for the investigators who are investigating. Number one, where are the witnesses? Where are the people who were out there who experienced this devastating tragedy? Where are the 35 people? Where are especially the 20 adults? Why were they deported in the early hours, the wee hours of the morning, 4 o'clock, when the attorneys, Christian Williams, had requested from the Minister of National Security that they be given a permit to stay so that they could assist with the investigation and get into the truth? Why did Keith Christopher Rowley and Nicolas Maduro conspire to pervert the course of justice by eliminating key witnesses? Were these 35 statements taken? By whom? Who is so expert in Spanish that they could take witness statements and write them so fast of 35 people in less than 24 hours? Why were the witnesses sent away? And the news day says so in the full brunt of the papers. And they ask, why are the witnesses? But today, as I open my newspapers, it's like this. The whole world is interested in the story except our local newspapers. Only one, The Guardian, prints on page 9 in normal black and white heading that you really have to look to find it. Why did you send off? People want to know in Venezuela. Why did you repatriate witnesses? We want to get down to the truth. So Keith Christopher Rowley, how can you be investigating an issue when the witnesses are gone? So we will only get the Coast Guard side of the story. Well, that is a PNM investigation. That is not a globally accepted natural justice and an investigation that will bring trust and truth. That is a fake oil investigation. That is a grabby-wabby investigation. The world will not accept that. Let me ask some questions quickly on top of that. So the first question was, why you send home the witnesses? The second one, engines shot at and lives were in danger, says the Coast Guard. Now I take in just the Coast Guard, right? What they said. Well, if your lives are in danger as a military person, you're not taught to look for an engine or something to shoot. If your life is in danger, you must end the threat. How do you end the threat? You kill. Pause and think. Military personnel, if your life is under threat, you kill. You stop the threat. So the Coast Guard statement that they felt threatened and they looked for a little engine in the back of a pirogue to shoot at does not follow basic military training. The engine trouble, we heard out of Venezuela that the pirogue had engine trouble. I have been fishing, and when we go with two engines, we move at 40 miles per hour, reach in 22 minutes. When only one engine is working, the same journey takes 4 hours and 30 minutes because you can't get up to the speed, you can't create the momentum, the boat is dragged back by the water and the currents. So if the boat was intercepted in Moruga and had only one engine, at what pace was this pirogue laden with 37 human beings and cargo? At what speed was it really coming to ram my Coast Guard in a super duper brilliant military base light craft, the best in the world with protection and so on? At what pace they were coming like this to ram them? This is a very serious issue. Furthermore, why need to disable the engine if your lives are not in danger? A vessel, a pirogue, has limited gas. It will run out of gas. Why do you need to stop them? Why do you need, if you can escort them, if you know that they are illegal immigrants also, or drug runners, or criminals, you don't need to stop them. You have them in your sights. You can follow them, escort them, use driving tactics on the big vessel, the Cape class that could go 20 knots, which is faster than a pirogue with one engine, and just wait for them to run out of gas. Why you have to shoot the engine? What's the urgency? And if they turn, because we want to know the investigation, how could you shoot at an engine if a boat is coming to ram you? An engine in the back of a pirogue, the bow is up. Where are you going to shoot in the back here? You're going to shoot through everything before you reach that engine. More questions. Where can 37 human beings hide on a pirogue? Please tell me. I would love to know. Where is the Venezuelan vessel? Where is that vessel? Because we want to know from a forensic mechanical engineer who knows engines, what was the state of the engines? Did it break down? What are the functionalities? Give us a report on the engine. What was the top speed the boat could have gone in order to investigate? Because for your life to be in danger, certain aspects must take place. Right? Why launch the light craft if you're not aware, if you don't know, if you're in darkness, if the FLIR system not working? Why put your men in a light craft? When is the last time the Coast Guard members had active combat shooting practice? Because shooting at target in a range in Tetron is not the same as active wartime activity or battling with weapons. When is the last time? And why, when did they do training on an ocean that is wobbly and waving and two boats are moving? Your boat is moving and the vessel is moving, and you try to shoot an engine like this? If you all watch the movie Captain Phillips, which is a recount of true events, you would see the precision and what it takes to pull off shots at night in the darkness. Well, they lit it up and they used infrared, and they had operations and they had cameras, and they had a man in charge who would tell them when to shoot, when not to shoot whole, and they had trained personnel. They did not even use their normal Navy personnel. They flew in specially trained marksmen from the Marine unit and laid them on top of the Navy in order to fire at night. We just have Coast Guard men who air shoot a gun in years. I went to train Coast Guardsmen who in the Coast Guard, and 18 out of 45 could not even swim. So if they can't swim and they're the Coast Guard, how good can they shoot? Why are we putting our people in harm's way without preparing them? That's what the PNM does. They have sent the Coast Guard out to do duty throughout the time, putting them in harm's way and not preparing them, just like our athletes were sent to Tokyo to be slaughtered without resources, without preparation, without vaccination, without competition. Our Coast Guard are told to do a job and they have no clue what to do, how to do it, and we have not put them and trained them. So we are endangering our people because of the incompetence of the PNM. If the vessel is ramming, how did they see the engine? Where did the coordinates? Because statements out of Venezuela said the boat had arrived down in Moruga. And so we are asking here, if the boat was intercepted in Moruga, where did the chase end? Did the chase end closer to Trinidad and Tobago's coastline? Or did the chase end further away? You see, if the chase ended further away, and the records of the vessel, the Cape class vessel, would show when the interception of the pirogue began and when it ended. So we need to know if it ended closer to Trinidad, well, you can say that it was escalating. But if it went from close to Trinidad to closer to Venezuela, it means that the witness accounts that they were turning back and heading back to Venezuela were true. And if they were turning back and heading to Venezuela, job complete, job accomplished, why shoot? Why kill? If you kill in those circumstances, it is murder. So the investigation is needed. We have no information, but we have a Prime Minister talking out the top of his mouth. But the Newsday had the correct idea on Wednesday, but on Sunday they lost the plot. On Wednesday, the Newsday said the shooting death of a Venezuelan baby on Saturday night shines an appalling light on operational standards in the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. Correct. The PNM has left the Coast Guard naked and afraid. And this is what happens when people are not trained properly, and there's incompetence at the executive level, which is PNM standard, incompetent across the board. We have no water, we have no electricity, we have no roads, we have no bridge, man house falling down. No, nothing is working in Trinidad and Tobago. this country's record when it comes to the treatment of illegal immigrants, and as well on this country's record when it comes to the treatment of illegal immigrants. Rowley and Stuart Young and the cabinet have been dragging the flag and embarrassing our country. It goes without saying that a thorough and independent investigation must take place. However, such a probe may not be enough. The damage has already been done, not by Kamala, by Keith Rowley, by the PNM, by Fitzgerald et Albert Hines, by the lack of preparation, by the lack of policy, by the lack of adherence to international treaties, by the treating of human beings like carcasses. We cannot go on like this. Patriotism is not burying your head in the sand. Patriotism is seeing problems and fixing them, standing proud, not pretending that they do not exist. Before Saturday, this country's reputation when it came to the treatment of children and women immigrants was already severely compromised. Our authorities have had little qualms in separating families and dealing with cases extrajudicially, often conducting deportations in defiance of court proceedings and via dangerous routes at sea. That is Newsday had it correct. Headline yesterday, 35 witnesses sent home. Why were the witnesses sent home? We want information. What are you trying to hide? Why are you covering up? How can you have an investigation without eyewitness accounts? You are sending a mountain of evidence back to Venezuela in conjunction with an indicted narco-terrorist, and you'll find that the world is going to accept that. The world is not PNM or Balize House. The Newsday though, Sunday today, from this brilliance, today, while the world is talking about the story, nothing, no experts, no columns from expert military personnel, no column analyzing the capabilities of the Cape class cutlass vessel, the vessels that were deployed. No engine expert, no boat expert, no fisherman expert, no expert, no discussion. Just throw it away. Why? To obfuscate, to allow Rowley some breathing room. Why do we do that? Do you see that on CNN or BBC or Al Jazeera? When a story is hit, they eat at it so much so that you may get fed up if you watch it for 12 hours straight. You hear about 60% of the same thing. But each time they add a little piece and they peel back the onion to get to the truth. How come we drop this story? The attorneys want to know why. We asked you to keep these witnesses. But why were they just deported? The attorneys did not even know. And repatriation, migrant repatriations, criticized in Venezuela. The repatriations have been criticized in Venezuela by pro-migrant activists who said the actions of the Trinidad and Tobago authorities have put children and adults at risk by subjecting them to actions that threaten their lives and fundamental rights. So Rowley has no policy on migrants, and all over the world we are becoming the pariah because of our treatment of human beings. The UN Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime, we have signed on to that since 2001. We have signed on to the 1951 Convention relating to the status of refugees, the 1967 Protocol relating to the status of refugees. Trinidad and Tobago is also a party to the following human rights instruments: Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948, International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination 1965, the International Covenant on the Civil and Protect Political Rights 1965, the UN Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. All of these, we are in breach or potential breach, and Rowley is playing games, sending home witnesses, saying that the Coast Guard will investigate the Coast Guard, or the PNM appointed Commissioner of Police, who was appointed as an accounting officer by the Minister of Finance of the PNM after thwarting a merit list and causing a constitutional crisis, that he will investigate the PNM Coast Guard that has already been defended by Rowley. Why is a prime minister that's supposed to be independent of the independent institutions, the executive? Why is the executive always so willing and able to defend wrongdoing? Why did Rowley defend tear gassing of women and children at the savannah while they were praying? This is not the way our democracy works. We are in a tyrannical, oppressive state. The UNC says, protect our porous borders, not kill innocent unarmed migrants, women and children. What madness is this? Nobody in the entire world is talking about Kamala except Rowley and a few PNM sycophants. PNM's concept of patriotism is see something, say nothing. Is that patriotism? That, and the Minister of National Security tells his constituents, if you find gun in the house, take the gun and throw it out in the road. But don't tell the police. That is exactly the policy that they're undertaking now, but the world is watching. Don't say nothing. Baby dead, woman get shot, accident. No, that is not good enough. If loving your children, you're a parent, and you loving your children, and you love them with all your heart, your job is to correct them. So don't tell me that being patriotic means that we cover up and we hide from wrongdoing. If a child abuse is occurring in your family, you must report it. You cannot say we must protect the family name and leave the child suffering. Rowley and the PNM are saying, by their analysis of this situation and by their offerings, that Black lives don't matter, that the Black Lives Movement and all the PNM who are saying, do not criticize, Kamala, do not criticize independent institutions. You are not a leader. All the PNM who say that, including Vassant and Bo, them is PNM, them is just new PNM. When they say that, what you are saying is that Black lives don't matter, because the Black Lives Movement globally was that independent institutions who have power, even if people were doing an illegal act, that they were dealt with harshly, that they were extrajudicial killings and they were abuses of power. That's what Black Lives Matter is about. Rowley is saying that the Black Lives Matter movement is irrelevant and they are wrong. And we in the UNC said no. The Black Lives Matter movement is correct. That when you have power and you have the ability to take away people's freedom, you must use that power under the law, under protocols, properly, with respect for life and understanding of the great power that you wield. Keith Rowley must go. He has embarrassed Trinidad and Tobago. The PNM must go. Our country is in a free fall. The United National Congress has the team, the leadership, and the wherewithal to start to pull us out of this morass of PNM incompetence. Good morning. Thank you.
We have some questions coming.
Thank you, Senator Roberts, for that fiery presentation here in our Sunday press conference. You kept me awake during your presentation, and I'm sure the media is also energized. So again, we are here ready to take any questions from the media.
I have two questions for you, MP Lee.
Sure.
One is, what is the opposition's view on Conrad NL being reappointed chairman of NGC? And what is the status of the criminal investigation with regards to AV drilling?
So the two questions there from the media. One is, what is our view about the retaining Conrad NL as the chairman of NGC? I want to firstly say that we would have seen in the media certain legal issues that Conrad NL has that came up in the media a few weeks ago. And being the chairman, retaining the chairman position of NGC, I mean, NGC is one of our major energy companies, major energy revenue earner for our country and for the citizens. And people who sit on that board should, in our view, should be one that exudes the kind of level of accountability, transparency, and respect to hold that position of chairman. One would remember that under NL's chairmanship, NGC suffered a $1 billion loss 2 years ago, or a year ago approximately. And his tenureship leaves much to be desired, because under his tenureship, again, you had the whole issue about that funding of Atlantic Train 1. So, and then you want to replace expert like Mr. Alam and Mr. Balkisoon, who are energy experts for career, span their entire career, and retain the chairman of NL to run our crown jewel for our country. So I would say if anybody has to resign, it should be the chairman of NGC, and that's our view as the opposition. The second question, as far as the police probe into the AV matter, I mean, we had a lot. Our past commissioner had stated in public about there is a police probe or a police investigation that is still ongoing, and we hope under this acting commissioner that investigation continues and some finality comes very soon in respect to that matter.
Senator Roberts, what is your view that the Prime Minister thinks that to criticize the protective services is unpatriotic?
What is my view that the Prime Minister and his other PNM cohorts, meaning like Vasant Bharat and Bo Tiwari, say that if you criticize actions of the independent institutions that you're unpatriotic? I think that is an asinine comment. 500 police officers are under probe over the last 3 years, since 2018, and over 52 of them have been charged and are before the courts. So are they saying, is Keith Rowley saying, is Vasant Bharat saying, is Bo Tiwari saying that those police officers that have been charged, Kamala Prasad shouldn't say nothing? Leave the police, let them do what they want? When we see videos of 3 gentlemen being held, covered by armed police with their hands up, and they end up dead on the ground, and police picking up things off the ground as if it's turnip seed and throwing them in the back of a van, that the people must accept that? When you have great power, with it comes great responsibility. A leader will ensure that those who are given responsibility and power handle it in a judicial manner, a judicious manner, and a legal manner. So being patriotic is not accepting wrongdoing from independent institutions. Full investigation is needed so that improvements can be made, so that the services can be institutions in which all the people can be proud.
Okay, thank you, Senator Roberts. Thank you for the media for coming here this morning and leader of the opposition office. It's again once a pleasure to present to have another Sunday press conference, ventilating and the views that have been in the public domain over the last 7 days plus. You would have heard from Senator Roberts the issue about the whole issue of the migrants that came last week, and the terrific death of the baby, and also you would have heard from me on 2 issues, NGC and the whole arbitration matter that was presented to Parliament by Minister Young on AV Jolene versus Petrotrin. So stay tuned. Thank you. We have come to the end of our press conference. Stay tuned for another press conference next Sunday, but tomorrow, Monday, I want to remind the public, stay tuned and listen to our virtual Monday night forum. As always, our honorable leader, the Honorable Kamala Prasad will be our featured speaker, along with a dynamic group of MPs and senators. So stay tuned tomorrow night, and thank you for listening and viewing. God bless and have a blessed